Hey guys, tonight we drift into something a little strange and a little beautiful. Imagine this. Somewhere far in the past, long before your memory, a person just like you lies down for the night. The air smells like smoke and dust. The stars are sharper because there's no light to dim them. And under their head, not a feather pillow, not a bundle of wool, but a smooth, cold stone. You can almost feel the hardness of it against your cheek. You probably wouldn't survive that, honestly. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your location and local time in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie there, in your imagination, on that ancient ground. The stone beneath your head isn't just a rock. To the people of prehistory, it's alive, pulsing faintly with the heartbeat of the world. You can almost hear it if you stay very still. The echo of rivers inside the stone, the murmur of deep earth heat. This idea that stones held memory and energy wasn't superstition to them. It was common sense. Everything was connected. Fire, water, wind, rock. Sleeping close to the earth was like recharging your body with the planet's pulse. You didn't rest on the world, you rested with it. Scholars still argue whether this belief came from pure practicality or something spiritual. Early humans slept where they hunted and ate, and stones kept their heads off the cold ground. But there's evidence. Carvings, cave marks, painted circles, suggesting it went deeper. These weren't random rocks. They chose them carefully. Rounded river stones, sometimes coated with ochre or ash, placed deliberately where the skull would rest. Archaeologists once found in a French Paleolithic cave a group of sleeping hollows, each with a single stone tucked at the head, smoothed as if by repeated touch. The find was small, but intimate. One researcher called it the first evidence of bedtime belief. You smile at that phrase, bedtime belief, because it sounds so soft for something so ancient. You wander mentally into that ancient night. Firelight flickers on the cave walls, shadows of hands, animals, constellations. The sound of breathing fills the space. There's a rhythm to it. Inhale, exhale, the crackle of the fire, the dripping of water in the dark. Somewhere a child turns over and clutches the little rock under their head. It's comfort, maybe even protection. The stone won't vanish in the dark like everything else does. For early humans, night was terrifying. When the sun left, so did safety. Predators came close. The boundary between life and death blurred. Maybe, just maybe, placing something solid and eternal under your head helped keep your spirit anchored. The stone was continuity. It didn't breathe, it didn't age, it didn't die. You, fragile and soft, borrowed its strength until morning. If you think about it, that's not so different from what we do now. You might have your favorite pillow or blanket, the one that travels with you from apartment to apartment, collecting quiet pieces of your life. It's no stone, but it's your anchor. Human beings haven't changed as much as we like to think. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're lying down in that ancient world. The fire's gone out. There's just the moonlight pooling at the cave's mouth and the heavy breathing of people asleep. The stone under your head is cool, grounding. Its edges fit the curve of your skull like it's been waiting for you for centuries. There's something hypnotic about that idea. The earth itself cradling your dreams. You can feel the centuries collapse, a line stretching from that nameless sleeper to you. Same body, same nervous system, same quiet fear of the dark. You both reach for something solid before sleep. One grabs a stone, the other a phone. Maybe both are ways of holding on to reality. Some anthropologists believe this habit might have evolved from a more practical origin, using stones to prop the head to avoid suffocation or dampness. But that doesn't explain the painted marks or the arrangement patterns. The same people who hunted mammoths also spent hours choosing a sleeping stone and decorating it. There's tenderness in that, a strange prehistoric bedtime ritual. You wonder if they dreamed differently. Modern sleepers have memory foam and mattress coils. They sink into softness and forget the ground. But those ancient dreamers, they lay directly on the body of the earth. Every vibration of an underground river, every tremor, every heartbeat of soil must have passed into them. Maybe their dreams were heavier. Maybe they dreamed in stone language, slow, unhurried, eternal. You picture yourself waking in that ancient dawn, the sun spilling through smoke, the stone beside you still warm from your skin. You pick it up, turn it over in your palm, and for a second, you think you feel a faint warmth, as if it held your dreams inside. That tiny miracle, repeated every night for thousands of years, might be how the legend began. Later, as tribes moved and cultures grew, that small gesture, placing something sacred under your pillow, would follow them. It would change forms, gemstones, herbs, charms, prayers, but it all began here, in the simplicity of survival and comfort. The next time you fluff your pillow, imagine the echo of that first stone, the beginning of every bedtime ritual that ever existed. You're part of that lineage now, just with softer materials and worse posture. Somewhere, deep beneath the cities we've built, those stones still lie where the first dreamers left them, still cold, still waiting. You roll onto your side. The hum of your fan replaces the hiss of the cave fire. The darkness is safer now, but the impulse is the same, to find something firm beneath your thoughts, something that doesn't move when you do. That's all this story is really about, the quiet human need for grounding, even in sleep.
You wander deeper into the thought, the cave pillow, the earliest bed humans ever made. It's almost funny how we picture prehistory as chaos, wild hair, raw meat, people screaming into fires, but imagine the quiet moments instead. Someone collecting river stones before nightfall, feeling their shapes in the palm, setting them down where the head will rest. There's tenderness in that, a bedtime ritual that predates language. The first people didn't just sleep. They prepared the ground like a small ceremony. They'd smooth sand, clear away roots, and pick one special stone. It had to be round, not sharp, with just enough curve to cradle the skull. If you ever adjusted your pillow 100 times to get comfortable, congratulations, you're doing something 30,000 years old. Archaeologists have found traces of red ochre near those ancient sleeping hollows. Pigment mixed with animal fat, rubbed on stones before sleep. No one's sure why. Some say it was decoration, others think it was symbolic, a sign of warmth, blood, or life. You could imagine that soft red glow in firelight, the rock gleaming like a tiny sun under the sleeper's head. Scholars still argue whether those marks meant protection or whether it was just aesthetic, prehistoric interior design. Either way, there's a strange poetry in it, painting the thing you'll rest your dreams upon. You close your eyes and drift into that scene. The cave is deep, breathing with the sound of wind through cracks. Someone hums softly, maybe to calm a child. The night is enormous. Outside, the world is a wilderness of predators and spirits. Inside, this little patch of sand and stone is safety. The smooth rock beneath your head carries the river's memory. Maybe it was collected from a stream earlier that day. Water polished, cool to the touch. In the morning sun, it glimmered. Now it lies beneath your cheek like a promise. To sleep on something so solid is to trust the earth completely. You can almost feel it, that shift between alertness and surrender. For those early humans, falling asleep wasn't a luxury. It was an act of faith, a decision to close your eyes when danger lurked outside the firelight. And maybe the stone, firm, Unchanging was their quiet shield. Modern scientists might call it symbolic transference, placing power in an object to feel safer. But that clinical term misses the intimacy of it. The stone wasn't a tool, it was a companion. Imagine waking up before dawn, the air cold, the embers dim. You roll the stone aside and notice it's warmer than you remember. You might even whisper to it, thank it, before leaving for the hunt. There's something human about that gesture, gratitude toward an inanimate object that shared your sleep. Somewhere in the evolution of comfort, that gesture got lost. Now our pillows come in packages that promise orthopedic alignment and temperature control, but none of them promise to carry our dreams. When you trace the path forward, the cave pillow was the seed for centuries of sleep mythology. Every civilization built on that instinct that your resting place needed meaning, not just softness. Stones turned to charms, to herbs, to feathers, to prayers. And yet it all loops back to this moment. A tired body, a stone, and the courage to rest. You think of how little things change. Humans still need the same rhythm, safety, darkness, a little ritual. Maybe your ritual is scrolling through your phone before bed. Maybe theirs was whispering to a rock. Both are distractions from the noise inside your head, a bridge between waking and dreams. You shift slightly, and in that movement, you feel time slip. You're both the ancient sleeper and the modern listener. The ancient cave air becomes the hum of your ceiling fan. The darkness is softer now, but the longing is the same, to belong somewhere, even for a night. A quirky archaeological theory once suggested that those early stones acted like primitive dream catchers, not woven from threads, but chosen for their shape and texture. Smooth stones represented calm sleep, rough ones, strength. It's speculative, sure, but you like the image. Choosing your dreams by choosing your pillow. The cave people might have believed that dreams came from the ground, that the earth whispered stories upward into sleeping heads. The smoother the stone, the clearer the dream. Maybe that's why so many ancient myths talk about voices from beneath. If you press your ear to a stone even now, you can hear something faint. The hiss of air, the whisper of your own pulse reflected back. It's eerie, but soothing. It's easy to see how people mistook that for the voice of the earth itself. As you imagine this, the air in your room feels a little heavier, like the cave air pressing close. You picture that person, a shadow version of you, curling up beside a fire, trusting the stone to keep them safe. There's something profoundly human in that posture. It's the same curve we make when we fall asleep now. Every time we close our eyes, we return to that same ancient rhythm, trusting the dark, hoping the morning will come. The cave pillow wasn't just about support. It was a silent pact with the world. Hold me while I dream, and I'll wake when the light returns. And even though your head now rests on cotton and memory foam instead of granite, that pact hasn't changed at all. You still surrender every night, hoping the world holds.
You move forward through the centuries, leaving the caves behind but keeping one stone in your pocket, the kind of smooth pebble you can rub between your fingers when you can't sleep. The world is warmer now, more organized. Villages replace caves, rituals replace instinct. Yet somehow, that small stone follows you, tucked beneath your head or sewn inside your bed mat. You're wandering through ancient Egypt now, the land of golden tombs and silent gods. Here, sleep isn't just rest, it's a rehearsal for death. The Egyptians believed that when you slept, your soul traveled through another realm, visiting gods, ancestors, and sometimes enemies. And so, you needed protection. Not a weapon, not a guard, but a stone. Under their pillows, or what passed for pillows then, often wooden headrests shaped like little arches, they placed small amulets made of limestone, quartz, or lapis lazuli. These stones were more than decoration. They were dream guards. The Egyptians believed that certain stones carried divine vibrations, like a secret frequency that scared away evil spirits and guided wandering souls back home by sunrise. You picture yourself lying in one of those quiet Egyptian homes. The air smells like oil lamps and palm fibers. The stone under your head glows faintly blue, lapis, the color of the sky before dawn. Its cool surface calms your thoughts, but more than that, it's a bridge between you and the gods. The priests said lapis helped open the gates of sleep safely. It's such a simple idea, the notion that even in sleep, you might need a key. Scholars still argue whether this was spiritual or psychological, whether people truly felt safer or if it was symbolic comfort. But maybe that distinction doesn't matter. The mind is a temple that believes what it must to find peace. Further east in Mesopotamia, people took it even further. They carved tiny inscriptions onto their sleep stones, short prayers, half spells, half poems. Keep away the shadow that walks in dreams. Let the sleeper see the morning. Imagine falling asleep with those words literally beneath your head. You wouldn't just dream, you'd listen. And that's the curious part. So many of these stones weren't placed under pillows, but under ears. Some archaeologists found them precisely positioned where the head's side would rest. It suggests something hauntingly beautiful. That ancient sleepers believed dreams were heard, not seen. That the earth whispered through the stones, and the stone whispered to you. You roll the idea around in your mind, hearing your dreams, hearing the earth. Maybe that's why, even now, we crave that faint hum when we sleep. The sound of a fan, a train in the distance, rain on the window. Silence is unnatural to us. It reminds us of the tomb. Noise means life, movement, safety. Maybe the stones were their version of white noise. In Mesopotamia, one popular sleep charm was the stone of the moon. It wasn't fancy, just a pale, chalky pebble, said to capture moonlight and release it in the dark. Families passed it down for generations. One side smooth, the other side etched with little dots, a code perhaps, or constellations. When placed beneath the head, it was said to invite good dreams and gentle voices. You smile at that phrase, gentle voices. There's something incredibly human about needing the universe to speak softly to you before bed. Picture this, a dusty home, the floor made of baked clay. A child rolls the moonstone in her hands. Her mother kisses it, whispers a name, maybe a prayer, and slides it under her small pillow. The girl closes her eyes, the stone pressing lightly against her ear, and falls asleep believing the moon will guard her dreams. Centuries later, we do the same thing when we check our phones before bed, scrolling through tiny glowing screens, still looking for a bit of light to follow us into darkness. Even the gods of those ancient worlds seem to approve of the ritual. In old tablets, there are mentions of dream messengers who could only enter through objects marked by the earth. Stones, being part of the earth's oldest body, were natural portals. Sleep wasn't passive, it was a journey, and the stone was your passport. One historian once called it the earliest form of bedtime travel insurance. You can't help but laugh quietly at that. It fits, doesn't it? The idea that even 4,000 years ago, people wanted reassurance before closing their eyes, a promise that they'd wake up again. Maybe that's why in every tomb they built, Egyptians tucked stones near the heads of mummies, polished pieces of quartz or limestone, often shaped like pillows. They weren't just symbolic, they were functional, at least spiritually. In death, as in life, the soul needed something solid beneath it, something that wouldn't decay or crumble. You can almost imagine that first night when someone realized it worked, when the nightmares stopped or the sleep felt deeper. They told a neighbor, and the neighbor told a priest, and before long the practice spread like quiet fire across continents. Now, as you rest in your own bed, you can sense the echo of that superstition in your nightly routine. You check the lock, the alarm, the window, the light. You surround yourself with little rituals before sleep, things that feel safe, that anchor you. You may not tuck a stone beneath your pillow, but you still seek that small, comforting illusion of control. That's what these stones really were, not magic, not religion, but control in a world that never guaranteed tomorrow. As the Egyptians once said, "Sleep lightly, for even stones can dream." You don't know if they meant it literally or poetically, maybe both. But as you drift further into this story, it's hard not to wonder if every night's dream is just the earth remembering itself through you.
You're somewhere between waking and dreaming now, gliding through the timeline like a traveler who's forgotten which century he belongs to. The ancient riverbeds fade, the pyramids dissolve into sand, and when the world clears again, you're standing among stones that hum quietly under your feet. You're in a place where people believe every rock has a heartbeat, the heart of the bedrock. Long before modern science told us about tectonic plates and vibrations, people already felt it. They swore they could sense the earth breathing. When they pressed their hands against the ground, they felt warmth, rhythm, something alive. That was enough proof that the world itself wasn't dead matter, but a giant, slow-beating organism. And so, when they slept with a stone beneath their head, it wasn't superstition, it was intimacy. You weren't sleeping on the earth, you were sleeping with it, syncing your pulse to the planet's own. Scholars still argue whether this belief began in prehistoric animism or early shamanic rituals, but the traces appear everywhere, from Africa to Anatolia, from tribal chants to burial hymns. There's a shared vocabulary of stone and sleep, the sense that what rests under your head is also what holds the world together. You crouch down in your imagination and touch one of those stones. It's cool, smooth, slightly damp. You listen. Somewhere deep below, something pulses. Slow as the tide, steady as breath. You realize that to the ancient mind, this was proof of connection. You were part of something massive, eternal. A single heartbeat inside a sleeping giant. It's strange. Modern humans crave that same reassurance, but we've traded bedrock for Wi-Fi signals. The ancients had no data, no science, only sensation. But maybe they were closer to the truth than we are. They believed certain stones shared your rhythm. In old African and Middle Eastern folklore, if your stone stopped feeling warm in the morning, it meant your spirit had wandered too far during the night. You'd have to rub the stone, whisper your name, and call your spirit home before sunrise. You can imagine that scene. Dozens of people sitting outside their huts, holding stones to their chests, murmuring quietly to themselves as dawn breaks. It sounds strange, but also deeply human. The connection between heartbeat and stone wasn't just symbolic, it was therapeutic. In parts of ancient Anatolia, healers prescribed stone sleep for melancholy or fear. The patient would lie on bare ground with a warmed rock under their neck, believing the Earth's calm would replace the mind's chaos. Think of it as prehistoric therapy. No appointments, no fees, just geology and trust. And maybe it worked. There's something grounding about the literal act of touching stone, the solidity, the permanence. It doesn't change, doesn't rush. You can feel time stretch slower through it. You can almost see it. A small hut, fire dying out, someone lying down after a day of labor. They place the rock under their head, close their eyes, and sync their breathing to that faint, imagined pulse. 1, 2, 3. The body slows. The mind loosens. The stone doesn't promise sweet dreams, only stillness. And maybe that's all anyone ever wanted. The Greeks later had a word for this feeling, omphalos, meaning navel of the world. They believed certain stones, like the famous one at Delphi, marked the Earth's living center. To touch it was to feel the heartbeat of creation itself. People would sleep beside sacred stones to receive earth dreams, visions that came not from gods above, but from forces below. There's something poetic in that reversal. While most religions pointed to the heavens for meaning, these people found divinity underfoot. Maybe that's why when they placed stones under their pillows, it wasn't about distance from the divine, but closeness to it. You weren't looking up, you were listening down. A Roman writer once mocked the practice, saying, "Only fools think granite can speak." But even he confessed that the best night's sleep he ever had was while resting near a cliff in Crete. He wrote, "The ground hummed, and my dreams were clear." He probably didn't know he was echoing a ritual thousands of years old. You start to wonder what the world would sound like if we still listened that way. If instead of fighting the noise, we tried to hear the deep hum beneath everything. Maybe insomnia wouldn't feel so cruel if we thought of the floor beneath our bed as alive, a giant creature breathing steadily, keeping time while we drift. You remember how it feels when you lie on the ground outdoors, at a beach, a field, even your own floor, and at how it quiets the brain in a way nothing else can. That's not nostalgia, that's biology remembering. The ancients might have believed that stones absorbed dreams like sponges. The longer you used one, the more dreams it carried. Over time, the stone became heavy with stories. Some families kept these heirloom rocks, believing they stored ancestral memories. To sleep on them was to share the thoughts of those who came before you. It's haunting, but beautiful, like a primitive version of memory foam, except this one remembered souls. You glance at the floor beneath your bed now, thinking about all the ground that's older than humanity itself. Every piece of concrete, every layer of soil, every grain of sand has been part of this planet's body since before your species existed. The bedrock doesn't forget. Maybe that's why ancient people found comfort there, because the earth, unlike everything else, stays. As you breathe slowly, you imagine that steady subterranean thrum beneath you. You match its rhythm. You can almost believe you're connected, not just lying on the world, but part of its endless, slow heartbeat. That's the secret those ancient dreamers already knew, that to rest isn't to escape the world, but to sink with it.
You move deeper into the mystery of stone pillows, because by now curiosity has become stronger than comfort. You imagine yourself lying in a dark, candle-lit room, the kind where shadows move even when nothing else does. On the rough wooden floor, a man lies with a flat piece of limestone under his neck. He looks calm, not like he's punishing himself, but like he's protecting something. His mind, maybe. See, in ancient Greece, stone pillows weren't just about keeping your head off the ground. They were believed to stop bad dreams from entering. Stones were seen as anchors of the spirit, solid, cold, unchanging. Your mind, a stormy sea of thoughts, needed something still to rest upon. The harder the stone, the steadier your soul. At least, that's what they thought. One carved marble block found near Athens even had an inscription: "May the sleeper's mind not wander." Scholars still argue whether this was a prayer or a warning. You start noticing a pattern. Across Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, stones keep showing up under the head, near the feet, around the bed. Sometimes polished, sometimes jagged. They weren't pillows, they were boundaries. Ancient people believed that dreams were like travelers. They could wander out of your head and get lost in the night, unless something heavy pinned them down. And the funny thing? They might not have been entirely wrong. Sleep scientists today say grounding pressure helps reduce anxiety. Weighted blankets are a modern luxury version of a stone pillow. The instinct hasn't changed, just the comfort level. But the ancients had another reason too: protection from spirits. In Babylonian sleep charms, there's a repeated phrase, "The stone will guard my skull from the demon of whispers." Imagine believing your thoughts could literally be invaded by an entity if your head wasn't touching something sacred. In a world where sickness, storms, and even sadness were seen as spiritual attacks, stone had power. Not just because it was hard, but because it didn't change. You wander into a temple chamber in your imagination. It's silent, except for the sound of dripping water. On a low altar lies a row of small, head-sized stones, each one smooth, shaped by hand. The priest sprinkles oil over them, murmuring words lost to time. You can almost feel the chill that seeps from the stones, like they're storing something old, maybe even listening. There's a legend from ancient China about a monk who could hear the dead speak through the pillow he rested on, a slab of jade that captured the last breath of the mountains. People started calling such stones dream bridges. It wasn't about sleep, it was about access to wisdom, ancestors, the unseen world. And that's the difference, really. To ancient people, night wasn't a break from reality. It was reality. Daytime was just a distraction, bright, noisy, forgetful. The real world began when your eyes closed and your spirit wandered. The pillow, the stone, the charm, they weren't furniture, they were gates. You can almost hear it now, the scraping sound of a head shifting slightly against stone, the whisper of breath mixing with the cold air. You'd think it would hurt, but maybe that's the point. The discomfort keeps you half aware, balanced between worlds. And as you lie there in thought, maybe you wonder if the ancients were right, and the line between waking and dreaming is thinner than we think. Then maybe they weren't sleeping on stones, maybe they were sleeping with them. Because in a world where the night was alive, you'd want something solid to hold on to.
You wake, or think you do, in the middle of the ancient world's strangest bedtime ritual. It's not just stones now. It's symbols carved into them, tucked beneath your neck, under your bed, even in your hands. You're surrounded by small rock charms, etched with spirals, snakes, suns, and eyes. Each one means something: protection, memory, healing. You realize you're in an age where every object has a purpose, every mark a spell. In ancient Egypt, sleep wasn't private, it was a negotiation. You'd pray before lying down, light a small oil lamp, and whisper to the gods of dreams. The stone headrest, carved in an arc, lifted your skull slightly, not for comfort, but so that evil spirits couldn't sit on your face. Yes, that was a real belief, that night demons attacked through your mouth, suffocating you in your sleep. The stone's curve let your breath flow freely, your spirit unblocked. Modern scientists call it sleep paralysis. Ancient Egyptians called it the demon of the night air. Different words, same terror. You imagine the weight of the limestone beneath your skull. It's cold at first, then strangely steady. Your heartbeat slows. You can almost sense why they trusted it, because stone doesn't change its mind. People do. One archaeologist once described these objects as half furniture, half amulet. He said that when he held one, he felt like he was touching the outline of someone's dream, because they weren't made by craftsmen, but by believers. And that faith traveled. Across the Red Sea, the custom reached Ethiopia, Arabia, then deep into Asia. By the time it arrived in Japan, the stone pillow had turned into a ritual called Makura no Ishi, the pillow stone of passage. It wasn't for the living anymore. It was placed under the heads of the dead, a way to keep their souls from wandering too far too soon. You realize now that what began as comfort ended as control. Humanity's oldest bedtime story was always about fear, of the dark, of death, of disappearing. The stone, solid and silent, was the one thing that stayed. And yet, somewhere along the way, that fear became reverence. Some people began to think the stone could store dreams. They'd sleep on the same rock night after night, believing it would remember their thoughts, like a primitive hard drive for the soul. When someone died, their family might keep the pillow, whispering prayers into it, hoping to wake the memories inside. Scholars still argue whether this was symbolic or literal. Some say it was poetic mourning. Others think it hints at early animism, the belief that objects can contain energy, even personality. Either way, the stone became sacred. Touch it, and you touch history. You picture one lying in a museum case now, smooth, faintly green from time, its edges chipped by centuries of use. Tourists pass it without looking, but you know what it is. A small, stubborn bridge between life and whatever comes after. Funny, isn't it? Today we spend fortunes chasing perfect sleep, memory foam, lavender oils, soundscapes of fake rain. But 3,000 years ago, people already had their version, carved from the earth itself. They didn't seek comfort, they sought continuity. And maybe that's why this story won't leave you alone. Because when you close your eyes tonight, the weight you feel isn't just your head sinking into a pillow. It's the history of everyone who ever tried to rest and not be haunted. You breathe slow. Imagine the stone under you, ancient and patient. The world turns above it. It waits. You drift. You drift further back in time, and this time you find yourself in a tomb. The air is still, dense, heavy with incense and centuries of silence. The only sound is the soft flick of a torch echoing off stone walls. You realize where you are, an ancient Egyptian burial chamber. There, beside the mummy, lies the same curved stone headrest you've seen before, polished smooth, carved perfectly to fit the base of the skull. But here's the twist. It's not just for comfort, it's a tool for resurrection. Hieroglyphs along the walls whisper their story. The sleeper will rise again, his head lifted by the mountain of eternity. The Egyptians believed that when the soul returned to the body after death, it needed to recognize its form. The headrest ensured that the face would remain elevated, preserved, ready to awaken when the gods called. So now, the stone pillow isn't just for sleep. It's for the longest sleep of all. You look closer, noticing small carvings on the headrest. The god Bes, protector of dreams, grimacing like a miniature guardian. Sometimes it's Hathor, sometimes Horus, but always a watcher. because even the dead, they believed, could be disturbed in their slumber. One papyrus even mentions night demons who feed upon the unguarded. The solution? A stone beneath the skull and a prayer etched into it. Solid faith meets solid rock. Scholars still argue whether these headrests were spiritual technology or symbolic art. But it's hard to ignore how consistent the pattern is. Humans trusting the earth to protect what the heavens might forget. You imagine an embalmer lifting one of those headrests centuries ago, whispering a blessing before placing it under a noble's head. May you dream safely until the dawn beyond the sun. You feel a chill at how poetic that sounds, and how it connects directly to something you do every night without thinking. Lying down, closing your eyes, trusting that you'll wake up. Maybe that's why every culture built rituals around it, to make that leap of faith a little less terrifying. You shift your focus to East Africa, where early Christian monks adopted the same practice. But this time, the stone pillow wasn't for the dead, it was for repentance. You lie on bare rock to remind yourself of humility. The harder the surface, the purer the prayer. To sleep softly, they said, is to forget God. And suddenly, that hard, cold, painful pillow becomes a test, not for the body, but for the spirit. Could you surrender comfort for clarity? Could you trade dreams for discipline? Modern psychology might laugh, but deep down you know the idea still lingers. Think about monks, soldiers, even minimalists today, stripping life down to what's essential. It's a different century, but the same search. How much discomfort are you willing to bear to feel real again? A carved stone doesn't sound like much, but to someone in 2000 BCE, it was a sacred balance between sleep and death, between peace and vigilance, between forgetting and remembering. You run your fingers through the air above that ancient headrest, half expecting it to hum. You know it won't, but part of you still listens, waiting for something beneath the silence. And maybe that's the quietest truth of all. People have always needed something to rest their fears on. For some, it's faith. For others, stone. Either way, the night still comes, and the human mind, no matter the century, still looks for a place to rest.
You open your eyes, and it's night again, but a different one. This time, the air smells of incense and something older, like dust soaked in time. You find yourself standing inside a Sumerian house around 2000 BCE. There's a clay lamp flickering in the corner and a family preparing for sleep. The floor is cool, the walls thick, and right in the center of their tiny room lies a flat block of stone with patterns scratched across it. That's their pillow. The father lowers his head onto it as though performing a ritual. He doesn't look for softness, he looks for certainty. Because in his world, dreams weren't random. They were divine messages, coded and sent from gods who didn't always use words. Every night, the Sumerians believed, was a chance for prophecy. But only if you slept correctly, body aligned with the north, head elevated by stone. You think about how strange that sounds now. A civilization literally training themselves to dream. And yet, you realize, we still do that today. Only our gods have changed. Algorithms, ambition, anxiety. We still chase signs in the dark. On a tablet discovered in Nineveh, archaeologists found a list titled Dreams and Their Meanings. One line translates to, "If a man sleeps upon the cold stone and sees his ancestor, it is good, for he is remembered." Scholars still argue whether this was superstition or psychology, but maybe it doesn't matter. The result is the same. People found comfort in the belief that the dead still visited them.
You lie down beside that Sumerian man in your imagination, feeling the edge of the stone beneath your skull. It's uneven, rough, grounding. You hear the wind outside, smell the clay, feel the pulse of the ancient city that hasn't yet forgotten the gods. The moment feels eternal, like you're borrowing someone else's dream. Later, that same belief system travels west, to ancient Greece again, but this time to the sanctuaries of Asclepius, the god of healing. The ritual was called incubation sleep. You'd lie down in the temple on a stone slab, hoping the god would visit you in a dream and prescribe a cure. People brought offerings, slept on hard stone floors, and woke claiming miracles. Some even wrote their visions on walls. He touched my wound in sleep, and I awoke whole. Modern psychologists call it suggestion. Spiritualists call it grace. You just call it fascinating how much faith humans can put into a single night's rest. There's a quiet irony to all this. We call it sleeping like a rock to mean deep and peaceful rest. But for ancient people, sleeping on a rock was about vigilance, not escape. They didn't want to sink into unconsciousness. They wanted to hover just close enough to the divine to hear whispers from the other side. And somewhere between myth and science, between superstition and survival, you realize the stone under the pillow becomes something more. A metaphor. It's the human urge to hold on to what's solid in a world that's always shifting. You glance at the stone again, the one that existed since before language. The same element used to build temples, graves, and roads. It's the first thing humans ever shaped, and maybe the last thing that will remember us. Because that's the secret of these ancient stones. They weren't meant to comfort you. They were meant to outlast you. And if you listen closely, really closely, maybe you'll still hear their purpose whisper through time. Sleep, but do not forget.
You wake again, only this time to the sound of temple bells, bronze ringing against the dawn. You're no longer in the desert or a tomb. You're in India, somewhere near the banks of the Ganges a few thousand years ago. The air smells of sandalwood and ash. Monks and travelers are gathered in small huts, their mats woven from grass, their pillows, yes, again, carved from stone or wood. You watch one ascetic, his body lean and scarred from discipline, lay his head on a small black rock. He whispers a mantra before sleep. May I dream only what is true. For him, rest isn't rest. It's a continuation of meditation. In this world, to sleep deeply is to lose awareness, and losing awareness means losing control. So he chooses hardness, stillness, stone. You realize this is more than superstition. It's philosophy. In ancient Hindu and Buddhist practice, the stone pillow represented non-attachment, a reminder that comfort is fleeting, but awareness endures. The Buddha himself, it said, often rested on a folded robe or a stone slab, not because he couldn't afford softness, but because he refused to crave it. You picture that. Thousands of years before memory foam, before bedtime playlists, before the idea of self-care, a man sits beneath a tree and says, "No pillow will make me dream better than truth itself." And yet, even here, the symbolism gets richer. In Sanskrit texts, dreams are shadow worlds. To the yogis, they're practice for death, mini rehearsals where the soul learns to detach from the body. So of course the stone becomes sacred. It's what keeps you tethered even as your mind wanders beyond the skin. A line from the Upanishads surfaces in your memory.
When the sleeper lies upon the earth, the spirit roams, yet the breath remains. Scholars still argue whether this describes sleep or enlightenment, maybe both. You wander among the huts. The monks are asleep, but the sound of their breathing merges with the wind. Their stone pillows glisten faintly in the moonlight. You realize the stones aren't all the same shape. Some are jagged, others smooth. Each monk chooses one that matches the weight of his thoughts. That phrase feels poetic, but deeply human. You kneel beside one and touch the surface. It's cold, yes, but grounding. Like placing your hand on time itself. You imagine what it would be like to fall asleep this way. No mattress, no warmth, no distractions. Just earth and breath. And maybe that's the hidden beauty of it. The ancient stone pillow isn't about punishing yourself. It's about remembering what's real. The ground beneath you, the air moving in your lungs, the awareness that you're alive. Funny how far we've drifted. We build entire industries to forget ourselves before sleep. Screens, stories, sleep apps. But the ancients, they built rituals to remember. Somewhere in the distance, a monk begins to chant again. Soft, rhythmic, endless. You can't understand the words, but you feel their weight. A lullaby that doesn't invite sleep, but consciousness. And for a moment you feel the pull of both worlds, the comfort of modern softness and the honesty of the stone. You wonder which one truly helps you rest. Maybe the truth lies between them. Maybe what the ancients knew and what we've forgotten is that rest isn't something you fall into, it's something you return to. Like the earth, like the stone.
You blink, and the chamber fades. The next thing you feel is wind, sharp, cold, wild. You're outside now, on a rocky hillside under a black sky littered with stars. The year? Hard to say. The people? Nomads. Bronze Age wanderers making camp in the wilderness. You watch them arrange stones into a circle, their fire flickering in the center. When it's time to sleep, each person takes a smooth, rounded rock and places it beneath their head. To you, it looks uncomfortable, primitive even, but to them, it's protection. The earth itself is alive, sacred, and stone is its voice. You see one woman pick up a small piece of quartz and whisper to it before lying down. It's a habit, as natural as saying, "Good night." Later, when she dreams, she believes the stone will carry her mind safely through the night. A kind of anchor, so her spirit doesn't drift too far. And as odd as that sounds, modern sleep science agrees on one thing. The brain needs anchors too. Stable, familiar sensory cues to keep from spiraling into anxiety. Maybe, in their own way, they already knew. Somewhere nearby, a child wakes from a nightmare. His mother presses a cold stone into his palm and says, "Hold this tight. It will remember your fear for you." The boy relaxes. You can almost feel the shift, a transference. Fear given form, made solid, manageable. It's primitive psychology, disguised as magic. The practice spreads. Across early Europe, people began to keep dream stones, river rocks or pieces of bone worn smooth by water. Before sleeping, they'd whisper their hopes or worries into them. In the morning, they'd toss the stones into rivers, letting the current wash away whatever haunted their sleep. Fast forward centuries later, and that same ritual quietly survives. You've probably seen its echoes. Worry stones, good luck pebbles, even crystals placed under pillows. New beliefs, same old comfort. You smile a little at the realization that no matter how advanced we get, we still trust the simplest things. And somewhere between the mysticism and the neuroscience, a fascinating pattern emerges. Every time humans can't explain something, they turn it into a story. A stone under a pillow becomes more than a sleep aid. It becomes a contract with the unknown, a pact between mind and matter. You keep me safe, and I'll believe in you.
You open your eyes, and the sound of chanting fades. The scene changes again. Now you're in China, centuries later, during the Tang Dynasty. The world has grown elegant, poetic. Even sleep is an art form. Lanterns glow softly through paper windows, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and ink. In the corner of a scholar's room sits something unexpected. Not a pillow stuffed with feathers, but a block of jade carved to perfection. He adjusts it under his neck, sighs, and closes his eyes. You realize this is another version of the same ritual, the stone pillow, reborn in beauty. But here it's not about fear anymore. It's about refinement. To the Chinese elite, jade wasn't just a gemstone. It was a vessel of virtue, hard yet smooth, cold yet alive. They believed jade carried qi, life force, that could balance the energies of the sleeper. Sleeping on it meant aligning yourself with the calmness of heaven and the stability of earth. You watch the scholar breathe slowly, his pulse visible at his temple. He's chasing a dream too, not prophetic, not spiritual, but artistic. He hopes to dream of poetry, of mountains and rivers, of the perfect phrase whispered by ancestors in the quiet between worlds. And maybe he will, because history records the poets of the Tang era often slept on jade or porcelain pillows, claiming they gave clarity to the mind and purity to the dreams. One old text even says, "The cool stone soothes the heart, and the heart reveals the hidden verse." Scholars still argue whether that was meant literally or as metaphor, but you suspect both are true. You imagine how that cold, smooth surface might feel against your neck. Shocking at first, but oddly calming after a while. The same way truth feels when you finally stop resisting it. Over the centuries, this practice spread. Craftsmen began shaping pillows not just from jade, but from bronze, porcelain, even glazed terracotta, each one more intricate than the last. Some had carvings of clouds, others of lotus flowers, dragons or cranes. They weren't only tools of sleep. They were declarations of taste, wealth, and spiritual intent. And yet, despite their beauty, the purpose remained familiar. Stability through stillness. The belief that dreams mattered, that what happened in the quiet hours could influence life itself. You find yourself standing in one of those scholars' rooms, your reflection shimmering faintly in the polished surface of a ceramic pillow. The window rattles softly in the wind. A candle burns low, and you realize something subtle. Every culture that used stone or hard pillows seemed obsessed with the same thing: control. The body sleeps, but the mind must not wander too far. Whether through fear, faith, or refinement, the goal was the same: to tame the wilderness of sleep. It's strange, isn't it, that even in rest, humanity couldn't surrender. We feared what might rise from the dark, even if it was our own thoughts. You glance again at the jade pillow, its edges glinting faintly in the lamplight. The scholar stirs, murmuring lines of a dream poem. "I sleep upon the mountain's bone, and wake with the cloud's voice."
It's beautiful, haunting, ancient, and somehow entirely familiar. Because even now, centuries later, you do the same thing. You lie down, close your eyes, and hope that something inside you speaks. That a dream might explain the day, or the past, or the person you're becoming. And maybe, just maybe, that's the true meaning of all these stones. Not punishment, not superstition, but a reminder that even when we rest, we're still searching. For peace, for connection, for meaning that doesn't disappear with morning light. You take a deep breath, let it out slow, and feel the cold memory of jade against your skin. You could almost sleep here, too.
You breathe in the faint scent of old ink and melted wax. And when you open your eyes again, the jade pillow has faded. The air is colder now, damp with salt. You hear waves crashing. You're in medieval Europe, a small stone monastery perched on a cliff above the sea. The moonlight spills through narrow arches, illuminating rows of monks lying on simple wooden planks. No feather beds, no linen, only robes, folded hands, and stones beneath their heads. You walk quietly between them. Their faces are peaceful, though their rest isn't exactly comfortable. Each monk has chosen a different kind of stone. River-worn pebbles, carved blocks, even pieces of broken altar. You can hear their breath sinking with the sound of the tide. Why stones again? The same reason as before, but seen through a different lens. Discipline. In the medieval Christian world, comfort was dangerous. Too much softness led to sloth, too much sleep to sin. The body was a vessel to be tamed, not pampered. In one old monastic rulebook, a line reads, "He who lies soft forgets the weight of the cross." And so, many monks slept on stone floors, their heads supported only by small rocks wrapped in cloth. The pillow of humility, they called it. You can almost feel the philosophy behind it. Hardness not as cruelty, but as clarity. The stone was a teacher, a silent sermon. You'd wake with a sore neck, sure, but also with a sharpened mind, one less distracted by comfort's illusions. And here's the twist. In some monasteries, those stones weren't random. They were chosen carefully, even blessed. One monk might keep the same stone his entire life, touching it every night, confessing into it, meditating on its texture. By the time he died, the stone would be smooth from decades of devotion, shaped literally by his faith. Scholars still debate whether these practices were common or extreme, but they left traces, journals, carvings, whispered traditions. In one record from northern England, a monk wrote, "The stone remembers all prayers spoken upon it." You pause at that. It sounds poetic, but also eerily similar to earlier cultures. The same belief that stone absorbs essence, memory, even soul. Maybe it wasn't just religion or superstition. Maybe humans have always sensed that certain things hold us better than we understand. The sea outside roars louder, spraying mist through the window slits. You close your eyes and imagine lying down beside those monks, the rough chill of stone beneath you, the faint rhythm of waves echoing through your chest. It's not comfortable, but it's grounding. It's honest. You can almost hear their midnight prayers blending into the wind. Lord, let the hardness of this world shape us true. The line hits deeper than expected, because you realize, in every civilization, from Egypt to Greece to China to Europe, the stone under the pillow has always symbolized the same paradox. Humans, fragile and temporary, resting their heads on something eternal. It's not just about sleep. It's about surrender. About saying, I trust this solid thing to hold me while I let go. Maybe that's why you're still here, listening to this story. Because even now, surrounded by memory foam and warm lights, part of you still aches for something real, something that doesn't collapse when you lean on it. You walk to the monastery window and watch the waves slam against the rocks below. The same stones that cradle these sleeping monks are the ones that break the sea's fury every night. It's a strange comfort that no matter how chaotic the world gets, stone endures. It doesn't dream, but it remembers. And maybe that's enough.
Morning comes slowly. The first light filters through the monastery windows like a ghost, pale and deliberate. The monks rise one by one, brushing frost off their robes. Their movements are silent, precise. No chatter, no wasted breath, just the sound of bare feet on cold stone. You follow one outside. The air smells like brine and sage. The cliffs drop steeply into a gray, restless sea. Below, the rocks are slick with seaweed, waves clawing at their edges. The monk kneels there and places his stone pillow beside him on the ground. You realize this isn't just a ritual, it's a dialogue. The same stone that supported his head through the night now anchors his prayers to the earth. He whispers something in Latin, and his words vanish into the wind. Then he lifts the stone, presses it against his chest, and returns inside. The gesture is small, but profound, as if he's carrying his own stillness back into the day. You wander further along the coast. There are ruins scattered everywhere, collapsed abbeys, broken columns, fragments of tombs. Every stone here once belonged to something larger, walls, cathedrals, monuments. Now they rest, scattered, smoothed by centuries of rain. People walk past them without noticing, but you can't unsee it anymore. Every old stone seems to pulse faintly, like it's storing stories just beneath its surface. You crouch by a piece of carved limestone, half buried in the dirt. The edge bears faint letters, somnus, Latin for sleep, maybe once part of a chapel wall, maybe part of a grave. Either way, the irony isn't lost on you. A gust of wind whips your coat. Somewhere behind you, a church bell tolls once, twice. The sound rolls over the cliffs and out to sea. You start thinking about the monks again, about their stone pillows, about the ancient jade one from China, about the Egyptian headrests carved for eternity. Different worlds, same instinct. Maybe humans were never trying to sleep better. Maybe they were trying to remember how to rest truthfully. Because sleep, real sleep, not just unconsciousness, demands surrender, and surrender requires trust. You realize that in every age, people chose something unyielding, stone, wood, earth, to lean their heads on, as if saying, "I'm safe here. I can close my eyes now." The thought lingers as you walk inland through fields now claimed by grass and sheep. The morning sun spills over everything, turning dew into glitter. You spot an old shepherd resting against a rock, hat tilted, eyes closed. He's not praying, not meditating, just being. And for a moment, that too feels ancient. The world changes, the pillows change, but the posture remains, head against something solid, heart finally quiet. You wonder how many centuries this simple act has carried people through storms, heartbreaks, wars, maybe more than history ever recorded. Maybe all we've ever needed was a place hard enough to remind us we're still alive and still allowed to rest. You sit beside that same rock, feeling its roughness against your palm. You imagine all the heads that must have leaned here before yours, shepherds, soldiers, lovers, wanderers, each of them leaving behind a small imprint of warmth, a whisper of exhaustion. The wind hums low through the grass.
The sea murmurs somewhere behind you. And in that silence, you finally understand why civilizations built their gods out of stone. Not because stone was beautiful, but because it endured the way we wished we could. You close your eyes, forehead against the rock, and breathe. The world feels far away. The ground feels infinite. For the first time, maybe ever, you don't want comfort. You want truth. And in that small, still moment, you find it.
By now, the journey has carried you through tombs, temples, and twilight beds, and you're beginning to see the thread that ties them all together. Every culture, every age, every lonely soul looking up at the ceiling at 2 a.m. has wrestled with the same question. How do I rest when the world keeps spinning? You wander now through a modern bedroom, not ancient, not sacred, just yours. There's no incense burning, no sacred relics, just a soft lamp and a messy pile of blankets. Yet even here, echoes of those old rituals survive. The bedside stones are replaced by glowing phones. The hum of the fan becomes the chant of the monks. The mind still searches for quiet, still fights the noise inside. You stretch out on the bed, letting the thought unfold. You always slept with stones under your pillow. Maybe not literal ones, but worries, memories, unfinished conversations. Invisible, but heavy. You carry them to bed every night like an offering to the gods of anxiety. But what if you did what the ancients did? Not bury the stone, not ignore it. Just rest your head on it. Acknowledge it. Let it teach you weight, patience, stillness. Because maybe peace isn't the absence of heaviness. Maybe peace is learning to sleep while the world still hums beneath you. Scholars still argue whether ancient stones really held energy or if it was all symbolism, the human need to believe that the earth could absorb our fear. Either way, the practice survived for millennia, crossing languages, continents, and faiths. That kind of endurance says something. It says people found something real in the act, even if they couldn't name it. You imagine, just for a heartbeat, being one of them, lying down in some distant century, head on a cool stone slab, stars flickering above, no city noise, no electricity, just the sound of your own breath against the night. The air is raw, unfiltered, but peaceful. You can feel the world turning under you, slow and steady, like a giant heart. And then you blink, and you're back here. The fan hums. The streetlight paints soft gold lines across the ceiling. The world is quieter than it's been all day. You realize you've been holding your breath. You let it go. The air feels easier now. The stone under your pillow isn't real. It's just memory, story, metaphor. But it has done its work. It's reminded you of something forgotten. You don't have to conquer the night to rest in it. You shift your head slightly, the pillow adjusting under your weight. Somewhere deep inside, that ancient stillness hums again. Not mystical, just honest. You picture all those sleepers across time, from pharaohs to monks to shepherds, all closing their eyes under the same moon. You smile. You're part of the same long, unbroken story, the quiet search for peace in the middle of chaos. The fan keeps turning. The world keeps humming. You exhale once more, slow, steady. And maybe tonight, finally, you'll sleep like the ancients did, not escaping the world, but resting inside it. Wind down, 300 words.